All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for being here for this event called The Artist and the Vote. My name is David Deblinger. I'm a faculty member at HB Studio, and I wanted to start off and just with like a little icebreaker. And before that, just to say that my whole life, like the word ensemble as a safe environment to feel comfortable to take the risk of sharing who I am has been like a big deal to me. And even in this little time with people that don't know each other that well, it would be great if we could feel comfortable enough, not just to share, but to listen and offer that incredible thing to each other. Anyway, to start, I just want to start actually in a very relaxed way. I just like to invite everybody to share 3 things, just your full name, the location of your birth, and a random fact about you that you're pretty sure nobody in here knows, but it could be like nothing to do with the subject. It could literally be, I had chicken and tofu earlier. You know, it just could be anything, okay? So I'll start, I'll say David Deblinger, no middle name. I was born in Brooklyn Jewish Hospital. I don't think it exists anymore than that name. And then the random fact is I had a dog from when I was 1 till I was 18. And his name was Biscuit. And I loved him. I did definitely loved him. Absolutely. Leyla?
Okay, let's try this again. My name is Leyla Hadi. I was born in Portland Hospital in London. A random fact about myself that I'm kind of embarrassed to share, but I can't think of anything else, is that I've seen 4 hours of The Real Housewives of New York City today.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Edith?
Hi, I'm Edith Meeks, and I was born in Memphis, Tennessee. Random fact about me. When I was a kid, for a while I had an obsession about reading out loud the Sears robot catalog.
Thank you. Snezhana?
Hello, my name is Snezhana Chernova. I was born in St. Petersburg, Russia, and I moved to New York in 1997. And since that, I was involved at HB Studio as a student, as a faculty, and as a panelist at the moment. And my fact, I love autumn so much. It's my favorite season. And I love walking on the leaves and hear that sound and look at the colors.
Thank you. Abhishek?
Hi everyone, my name is Abhishek. I was born in New Delhi, India. A random fact about me: when I was a kid, I stole some other kid's bike.
Thank you. Thank you. Juan?
Hi everybody, how you doing? I'm Juan Ramirez Jr. I was born in the Bronx, New York City, uptown. And a fact about me: not only is today Dia de los Muertos, but today's my 1-year wedding anniversary. I was married a year ago. So sending love to my wife, Christine. So thank you. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Mazel tov. John Martin?
John Martin Green, born in Bronx Hospital before there was a Bronx, Lebanon. Random fact, when I was a young boy, Malcolm X was a family friend.
Holy cow, that's amazing. Thank you. Thank you. Peter?
Peter Francis James. I was born in Chicago, Illinois, in a year when it was the most segregated city west of Johannesburg, South Africa. That's a fact. And random fact is I'm one of 74 first cousins.
Wow.
Wow.
fact. Wow, thank you. Lorraine?
Hi, my name is Lorraine de Silva. I was born in Manila, Philippines, grew up in Queens, New York. And a random fact about me is I love to knit and crochet. And that's the main thing that I love to do while watching Netflix.
Magali?
Hi, my name is MAGALY Colimon-CHRISTOPHER. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, I believe at Kings County Hospital. And a random fact about me is that I was a major daydreamer as a kid, and I would walk down the street writing poetry about leaves and flowers and clouds, and I would sit in the park and draw pictures in my notebook.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Hey everybody, I'm Yeanafehn. Born in Trenton, New Jersey. And random fact was I cooked a whole chicken today in a cast iron skillet.
Nice, very nice. Thank you. I don't think I forgot anybody. Did I forget? No. So thank you all so much. Again, not just for sharing, but for listening. And now I'm just gonna have a brief discussion with Edith Meeks about why we came together tonight, or what this idea was to have you here under the auspices of an event called The Artist and the Vote. So Edith, what was the first thing that made you think about this?
Yeah, you know, my answer to this keeps changing, I think, but I really feel like we're in an absolutely unprecedented moment for this country, and I find myself in my role as a executive and artistic director, sort of torn between, you know, doing my work and doing everything I can to support the change that I'd like to see through this election. So I see us in such multiple crises, and I am aware that I respond to those crises both as an artist and as a citizen. And you know, we've had these questions, you know, should we be political in our art? But what is politics in our art? And then I start to think, what's the difference between having a civic voice and having an artistic voice? You know, is there really a boundary, or what boundaries do I make for myself? What does it mean to me to have a creative voice? What does that mean to other people? I start to sort of wander down that path with questions. And then I'm aware that we're an international school, that everybody at HB doesn't vote in America. So we have other perspectives on that. This is the first, I don't know if it's the first year, but I know that this year we are having international observers at our election to make sure that it is, it happens the way it's supposed to. We've always kind of thought, the U.S. has thought of itself as having that role in other countries, and then I'm also very aware that we are seeing, in ways that we have seen and not seen over the years, how those the possibility of having a voice and being represented in the U.S. is quite badly distributed. That's the heart of what's happening now. So all of those things are in my mind. And I'm thinking about what it means to me and to other people, curious about what it means to other people to respond to that from your artist self and from your civic self and from your political self.
Okay. Thank you. That's great. That's great. Okay, great. So what I thought we would do now is, one at a time, Edith, the one question I was going to ask you, it's kind of a weird question, but I was thinking to ask you, do you consider yourself an informed voter?
Yeah, yes, but I think probably presumptuously so. You know, I am also thinking a lot about what one thinks one knows in this time. You know, what I thought I understood about climate change, and then suddenly the roof was blown off on that, and what I thought I understood about race, to be honest, and what I'm learning that I really didn't know and understand or allow to surface. So I consider myself a learning voter and a hopeful voter, because I also don't see the vote or the political conversation as a solution so much as a thing that we have to do that's sort of part of something much, much larger that we have to do.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And thank you for making this happen and asking me about it and bringing such an incredible group together to talk about this. So as I said, now I guess what I'm thinking is that I just want to give everybody a chance to stream of consciousness around what Edith has said, or what the vote has to do with you as an artist, as a human, as a citizen of this country, or a citizen of a different country, or as someone who has any points of view about what it is to live and be a resident here at this moment. So really just about anything. And I'll start just by, again, doing a couple of minutes of streaming of consciousness. And then I'll just say your first name, and then I'll ask you to do the same. And if you can't think of anything, or if you wanted a minute and you want to move on, you can just tell me that, all right? So I'll start. Okay. I early vote. The first thing that comes to my mind, artist in the vote, is that I got up at 5 a.m. and I went to the Brooklyn Museum, which is my early voting spot. And at 5:45 a.m. today, there was like 27 people. And I was standing there listening to a podcast actually. But then I saw people. I live in a mostly Caribbean American, and it was mostly African American or Caribbean American, I'm assuming, folks. And I felt, just personally, I felt like there was a similar vibe personally and of the group that I saw, that we gotta do this. We gotta, and including the people that were volunteering. I felt like, okay, are you going? Okay, you're next. Okay, everybody. It's like, I felt like everybody was like, let's go. Like, because I feel a little panicked. I have a little boy who's 5 years old. I'm a new father at an old age that I am. And I didn't want to get too, specific or whatever, but if I'm scared for my son, I'm scared for me. And if the current, and this is just me, and we don't have to talk such specific politics, but I'm just going to throw in that if the election goes away where it stayed status quo, I don't know that I want to live here anymore. So I think this vote is I do believe it's one of the most important of my life. Another couple of things I was thinking about with the vote, I was thinking on a personal basis, like in small groups, when we're trying to get something done artistically, like an education committee at my theater company, Labyrinth, or other committees at my theater company, Labyrinth. Sometimes when everybody has a vote, it can be challenging to get anything done. And how I remember there's one member, I'll have him remain nameless, but I remember him saying that he said something about the theater company is a dictatorship. It's got to be a dictatorship because And I sort of knew what he meant in the sense that to move things forward, sometimes if everybody is like sort of pushing their agenda. And then another thing I think of is how important human beings' life and voice are. And that's what I find frightening. That I feel like people, like, depending on what their economic status is, depending on what their ethnicity is, for 400 years, but today, they don't matter as much. And I don't want to live in a country like that. So I guess I'm grateful, although terrified, that we get to vote. Lorraine?
So I am a pretty political person, so I will get into specifics, but you know, I was into politics first, way before I got into acting, but I mean, life is political. Everything about life is political, as much as, you know, people would like to separate the two. Everything that happens, everything that we do, the way we think, it's all political. But to be really specific, I guess, how this vote affects me as an artist, or me as a person first, is I believe this vote is important in slowing down the train crash, or giving time to correct this country's course, I guess, is a better way to put that. Because, I mean, Trump is he's not the problem, he's a symptom, right? And so voting him out to me means that we give this country 4 years to try and not just treat the symptoms, but fix the problem, cure the disease. Do I think that's going to happen in 4 years? That's a different story, but that's what that vote means for me. Now, what it also means for me as an artist is giving a chance for important policies to come in and help out people like artists who need things like universal health care the most, or yeah. I mean, the starving artist is a kind of a stereotype for a reason, right? So how many of us, well, now many of us should be insured, but how many of us are underinsured? Before Obamacare, how many artists were uninsured? And then without the mandate, how many will become uninsured again? So this vote, I guess, gives another 4 years of trying to get something like universal health care through Congress. Again, is that going to happen? That's a different story, but at least it gives me a bit of hope. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. John Martin?
Hey, well, I was raised in a household of organizer, activist, artist people. And so art and activism are not mutually exclusive to me. I am, or have been up to this point over the course of this election year, I've been particularly since the lynching of George Floyd, I've been thrilled, to be perfectly frank and earnest, you know, about what I see as so COVID was, to my mind, has been, to my mind, the universe's giving us a timeout, the whole world, like unruly children, telling us, go to your room and stay there, which, because of which, we could not be diverted, deflected, or distracted from the lynching of African Americans that has been happening since the inception of this, which we call America, and which we've been clamoring about, you know, pretty much since the beginning. But I know over a century ago, Ida B. Wells and Sojourner Truth and W.E.B. Du Bois and folks like that have been saying, stop, stop, stop. And nobody has listened. Even since the advent of cell phone cameras, you know, and we've been seeing for almost, well, not a generation, but for over a decade, one after the next, after the next, after the next. It's been weekly, pretty much. African Americans being slaughtered as a function of the police state under which African American folks have lived. And because the whole world, again, was not able to be distracted and deflected from the lynching of George Floyd, there has been an eruption of humanity, the likes of which we have never seen, not even at the height of the civil rights movement, which makes me feel hopeful about the prospects here for, as Lorraine so aptly puts it, some course correction, you know, the potential, that possibility, you know. Last Sunday morning, my partner in Blackberry Productions, my theater company, Stephanie Berry and I were out voting, you know, and we got there to our polling site at 8:30. And by 10 o'clock, when the polling site opened, the line was wrapped around the block 3 times. And I had been predicting for months that this will be an election, the likes of which we have never seen in our lifetimes, including folks who are 90 years old. And with more than 9 million people having already voted, I'm telling you, I'm all but beside. I mean, you know, there's an element of terror because there are a lot of people who do not admit to, you know, going for the, you know, the psychopath, you know, who as Lorraine so aptly says, is the symptom, you know, of the who is the Frankenstein monster with, you know, white supremacist, you know, Euro male heterocentric hegemony being the monster, the real monster. But I'm profoundly hopeful right now.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, John Martin. Snezhana?
I moved to this country and I was a Russian citizen for a long time, but then I became an American citizen. I was naturalized in 2007, and that was and I understood that I have privilege now to vote, and that for me was so. What to become an American citizen? What it gives to you? You have rights, and the first right is to vote. And I felt like it's something so important, and was the voting at that year was also incredible. I stood in a line. I live in Brooklyn, and the voting was in school, and the line was so long, and it was evening. I came from my work, and that's the only time I was able to be there, and everybody who was behind me and in front of me, we were afraid that they will close the doors and we'll be not able to vote. Eventually, I was able to get inside, and the line, as I said, it was long and time was long, but I did it. That was my first time voting. I still remember that. And I still think that's a privilege to be able to vote. And that's what I'm going to do on November 3rd. And doesn't matter who will, I think it still doesn't matter who will win. We as an artist, we as a citizens, we still can make changes. And we have to support our ideas. We have to support what we are standing for. And as an artist, we have a power to talk to audiences. Do we do enough? I don't know. I don't think so. We as an artist, we can do something else, not just run around and screaming, do this, do that, and hit and whatever. We can do something more than that, because the words that we are saying, the gesture that we are doing could be more powerful. And that's what we have to think about it. And also, what is the theater now? What we bringing to our young generation, to our students as a performer, as a teachers, what we want to say, where we want to rule them. And I think when we start our classes, we always very often hear that you have to find a conflict in the scene, you have to find a conflict in the play. But it's different time now. It's so much conflict inside, outside, inside, everywhere. We just have so much conflict. I think it's time when we have to find what is, where we agree and how we're developing that agreement in a scene, in a play, in our lives. I think there's something else we can do, and some other way we can think how to do it. And what play to choose, what to write, what to say, what I think it's a lot, it's a big discussion. And thank you, David, and thank you, Edith, for starting that. But I think we can talk more about it even after November 3rd, after voting will happen. What we can do for this country, what we can do for the world. Yeah.
Thank you. Juan?
Hey, thank you, David and Eva, for this. I've been thinking about that word artivism, right? And the idea of like exploring, right, what art does, and I think art does well that idea of like life imitates art, right? And I think for that to happen, the artist has to that artist has to stay in that mindset. And I think when it comes to the election, it's just politics in general. I'm gonna speak very generally. I remember starting out. I'm a South Bronx kid, and I drank that Kool-Aid, as they say, with everybody else from the hood. That was like, your vote don't matter. It don't count. It's not for you. And then I got older, and it was like, oh well, we got to choose the lesser evil, this and that, and and even today, I still walk that line of like improvement, lesser evil. Um, but this year, several years, something I learned from the Obamas was the idea of compromise, right? And that idea of like discussion, right? And this year, I just keep thinking about like what I have to do as an artist and that idea of like compromise, discussion, always bringing the topic up. Don't be afraid of, um, bringing that into people's faces. And I always think of like the little girls who watch Wonder Woman. I always think about the little kids who saw, Black Panther for the first time, little black and brown girls. And I just think as an artist, like it's that's so important, right? Because representation means us, right? Because it means if we're represented, it means we exist. Not just in our minds, but like in our souls. And so, like as an artist, I just tell myself I gotta be present for that to happen, no matter what I'm feeling. I'm part of the American Theater Group. It's a playwright lab for like BIPOC and queer artists. We meet weekly. I did wonderful stuff with wonderful conch shell productions. I stayed, part of that virtual theater, a whole new thing. That was an exciting thing. And I'm realizing that whether I'm feeling my cup of water is half full or empty, however it is I'm feeling, hope hope doesn't have to be for me. It's for the next generation. Like activism. Doesn't matter how I'm feeling sometimes. It's just the point that I put it there because somebody else is gonna you know attach themselves to that. Somebody else is gonna say, "Oh, you did that," or "I saw that. This affected me this way," and that's all part of empathy. And I think that that's the artist's greatest tool. So I've learned that this year. Hope doesn't have to. I don't have to come in like this. I could come in however, and as long as I keep showing up, somebody else is gonna see that and they're gonna show up. So that's a big thing for me.
Thank you, brother. Magali.
Hi. The responses have been so amazing. I lost track of the initial question. And I think at the crux of it, I think it is a question of artivism, or is an artist an activist? And how does an artist be political? And is that it, David? Am I on the right path?
I think, as you might like, I think I really was leaving this. There's a number of questions, starting with what does the vote mean to you as both a person and an artist?
All right. The vote equals a voice. And it's an interesting thing to be an actor. That was my first launch into the artistic world. And I'm also a writer and a director. And Juan was sharing that I'm the producing artistic director of Conch Shell Productions. And what happened in my journey is I always knew I had a duty to have a voice in the electoral process, but I never knew I had a duty to have a voice as an artist for a community until I realized I was silenced. That the work I was doing when I was in grad school, when I got out of grad school, I was playing their versions of what it means to be a Black woman. And that wasn't my version. And so I was forced to write because I had a version. And my version matched so many other people's versions. And my version was influenced by my Haitian background. The fact that I am bicultural simply because I'm a first generation American. And I wasn't at that time in my journey when I first started writing and directing and telling stories from my perspective, feeling that our voice mattered in America. We had to assimilate. And that is as illogical a concept as any. And so with the vote, it may seem like you're assimilating because you're selecting a person that went through a whole bunch of vetting systems that you may not have been part of, but you are. You are part of that vetting system. If from the very first time you voted, you were looking to see who's the judge that you're voting for in your area, who's the mayor that you're voting for in your area. How are you influencing the thoughts of others as an artist when you're writing? How are you affecting the thoughts of others as a teacher when you're teaching? How are you affecting the next generation when you talk about what it means to be human? You are influencing who ends up to being nominated as a, the party representative in a presidential election or a mayoral election or a gubernatorial, the election of a governor. So for me, my vote, every time I open my mouth and express my viewpoint on what it means to be human, I am voting for humanity. And ultimately, that's what politics is, right? A certain group of people selected to represent us humans and our visions and missions, and hopefully not focusing simply on those who are wealthy, but those who are not. So, yeah, my vote is more than just the ballot that I cast every time there's an election. My vote is every time I step forward and declare my viewpoint and allow other people to declare theirs and have their unique voice expressed. I'm voting for humanity. So that's the ultimate vote. And as artists, I think we are casting that vote every time we choose a play to write or a play to perform in or a group of people to explore the human condition with. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nya?
Yeah. The vote, what it means to me is important, just like in terms of me just participating as a citizen here. I'm also a first generation immigrant, and I have family that they wish that they had a participation in a system that they live in. So, seeing like, when somebody finally got their citizenship and it was like, I can finally have a voice or participate or have some type of participation in something that I'm within, and I think like just having that participation means a lot and to exercise it. So even wherever this vote goes, that I know that I did something. I did at least something to try to change it or to like make it a way that I believe it should be. And I feel like that's powerful. And I feel like also too, as an artist, that when you exercise those, or, that it kind of adds to how you move about in the world, like when you participate, it's kind of like if you participate in something, you're gonna move different than if you don't participate. Right or wrong, it doesn't matter, but you're gonna just move different, right? Because like if something happened, you're gonna, you will know what you did or not did or so in that situation. So, voting for me is important in that sense, in that I'm using something that's available to me that I know for a fact people wish they had. I seen the happiness of somebody who can finally vote, and it's like, oh my, yeah, I can finally vote for somebody that I agree with. Like they wish, you know what I mean? Like I seen that joy, and you know what I'm saying? Especially when like Obama, like the presidency, like somebody, I finally, as as an immigrant here from Africa, was able to vote for a Black man, that was like huge, you know what I mean? So like seeing that and knowing like the privilege of that, I think like I just have to vote. And I think as an artist, in terms of like this political landscape, and especially what's going on, this as one person said, every week is something, and unfortunately it's things that obviously are affecting us in ways that it's crazy. I mean, some, positive, some negative in terms of what we're seeing. But I think what it's doing is that it's creating like a place for conversation where you can't really hide. You can't hide, right? Like, because, things are like blatant, like it's in your face for real, repetitively, and it's talked about everywhere. And it's something to this point that if it's not being talked about, that's also a decision. Like, that's a known decision, right? Because it's you can't go anywhere without that being there. Like, even the news is like, sadly, this is for clicks. Like, why would I not, why would I not show this, right? This is everywhere. So I think as an artist, like, just, again, with voting, participating in whatever way, like, you just even talking about it, you just even entertaining these conversations. I think even as an artist, given that how we have to look at inner lives of other people, seeing another person, seeing where they're coming from, and then truly understand, right? You got artists that, play terrible people in their plays, right? You got to really dig deep and know who they are. And I think as an artist, having that skill, because a lot of people don't. I mean, I think we know some people that they hear one word and like, whoa, what the, I'm about to fight. But at least for us, I think as artists, as writers, as directors, as producers, that we have a skill that a lot of people don't have, that is very hard to achieve. We all work hard to have it, to really look at a person, where they coming from, and to really conversate with them and be like, wow, sensibly, like, what's about it that make you come from that place to do this, right or wrong? And then from there, being able, from that deep place, like, to really feel you, right? To really talk to you, like, yo, like, let's see if we can change it. Let's see if we can get to a level where we, it elevates both of us or all of us, instead of like shutting down and like, compressing some of these things that can like eventually bubble up. So I think as an artist, me personally, to really understand where things are coming from and using that skill that I think we all have, to see where they're coming from, to see whoever's coming from, whoever, and like use that as a means to like maybe change their thought, and also hopefully brings us up to a higher level.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Leyla.
So I'm going to take a second to, just because everything everybody has said has just been ping, 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 ping in my brain, and I have so much to say. But I guess I'm going to start with the fact that I've lived in the US for 13 years, since I was 18 years old, and I cannot vote. I don't have the right to vote. Because I'm a resident, I've gone from being a student to being on a working visa to now having my green card. And despite the fact that I've lived here my entire adult life, I've had no voice in the political process. I've practiced the law in this country. I'm a barred attorney, and yet I can't vote. So when 2016 rolled around, I think I'm pretty sure I can speak for all of you, and it felt like it was a collective bitch slap on New York City when he won, because none of us were expecting that. It was just, I remember just walking around the city being like, everybody was just bitch slapped. I don't know how else to say it. But I felt personally victimized and personally hated by the results of that election, because I'm a woman, I'm brown, I'm from a Muslim country, I'm LGBTQ, and that was basically everything that he was saying is what this country should not be. And this is what you vote for me, you vote this scum out, essentially. And I felt like that scum. I felt like, yeah, okay, fine. The popular vote was won by Hillary, but at the end of the day, he became the president. And everything that he was saying was what theoretically is what this country, he represents this country. And I remember right after the election, I flew to Pakistan to get my visa re-stamped, because I was like, I have to do this before the inauguration, because I don't know what the hell he's going to do the minute he becomes president. And my bosses, who are, partners at a law firm, are looking at me being like, you're being ridiculous. Nothing's going to happen, but fine, go. And I was stuck in Pakistan for 3.5 weeks, and I got back And my partner gave me a hug saying, thank God you had the wherewithal to just go do it, because week 1, he puts in the goddamn Muslim ban, right? And I have not identified as Muslim by choice for a very, very long time, but the result of that election made me want to like wear a goddamn hijab and run around the streets being like, I am Muslim, you know? Okay, so I told you I was gonna rant a little bit. So I was feeling very personally attacked, very personally hated. I was like, where do I go? What do I do? Do I leave this country? What does one do? But then at the same time, this country did take me in, right? It did take me in. It did allow me to marry the person that I wanted to marry. It did allow me to be educated in ways that I wasn't going to be able to be educated in Pakistan, right? So we have this country where people from everywhere across the globe would love the opportunity to come and be educated here. Yet the entire fucking, excuse me, the entire country is dumb. Like nobody is educated. Like nobody is educated in this country. I don't understand, you know? And it's just such a contradiction. And you guys have been talking about humanity. That word has been used so much. You can't have a system based on capitalism, which is based on greed and wealth and making richer people richer at the expense of whatever, and also have a system where human life is put first. It just doesn't work. It just absolutely doesn't work. And the history of slavery, oppression, all of that in this country goes down to the basics of capitalism, right? Like Black people were not people, they were property. And what happened, what happens after you get rid of slavery is that essentially turns into the prison system and mass incarceration, because it's not about their lives, it's about how can we get richer. The reason that I got a work visa, the reason I decided to become a lawyer was because that was what was going to allow me to be in this country. Me being able to say to the government, you know what, tax my ass off, I'll get a job and like, here, you can make money off of me. That was it, you know? It didn't matter that I was in love with another woman who was from Pakistan. It didn't matter that I had whatever it is, right? Nothing matters. Me, I don't matter. It was the fact that I could check a box. And the fact that I'm brown, woman, immigrant, that's so many boxes we can freaking check at the same time. Like, excellent, excellent. This, like, she works perfectly because she checks the boxes. But if I were to turn around in 2011 and say, you know what, actually, I'm going to become an actress from Pakistan. And at the time, keep in mind, DOMA was still in place. So I couldn't have married my then, you know, a partner and been allowed to stay here because we weren't recognized federally. Oh my God, I'm out of breath. All this to say is I'm scared. It was a shitty rainy day in New York. I wish I had the hope that you guys have expressed. And let's just hope it isn't all this reality TV that's just brought me down and that, you know, things are going well. The vote matters because it represents people like me who cannot vote. And art matters because that's how I voice my opinion. And forums like this where I just freaking go off.
No, that was beautiful. And this is exactly what we're doing. So thank you so much. That was and, Peter.
Hi. I tried to just unmute myself. Am I unmuted?
You are unmuted.
It's been wonderful to listen. I've made some notes, otherwise I really couldn't speak, or I would go on for 3 days. So I think it's just important to stick to those for the moment, and just to say that thank everyone for allowing me to think more broadly than I was thinking half an hour ago. John, we share activist parents, and I grew up in Chicago when the first Mayor Daley was mayor, and it was a Democratic party in control, but it was an authoritarian police state. on the south side of Chicago that I grew up in. So we didn't have progressive politics. What we had, what you called independent politics. And, you know, we know that but for the Electoral College, which was a device that was made to amplify the preferences of land holding and slave holding white males, and it's working just fine. It's working as intended. It is magnifying those preferences. But for that, it's worth remembering in this country, we would have had a President Gore. That is the popular will. We would have had a President Hillary Clinton. That is the popular will. But there was a saying in Chicago, and it was best said by the sons of the Irish immigrants who were pretty left-wing because they remembered where they came from. Their parents made them with a cuff like that. Don't forget you're fucking Irish, you know. And some of them were good militant red Catholics, you know. And they had a phrase about this, which is, you gotta win by more than they can steal it by. And that's our margin. That will always be our margin. So I can't cry about fairness. I wasn't raised to cry about unfairness. We gotta win by more than they can steal it by. That's our margin. It always will be. That's what it means to be a progressive or an independent. You know, when Lincoln said, you can fool some of the people all the time. Well, that's the Trump voters. You can fool all the people some of the time. Well, let's give him a chance and see what he does. But you can't fool all the people all the time. But that's not optimistic. In there is an admission that if you're progressive, 2 times out of 3, you lose. So be ready to move the damn ball when you get it. That's all. As to the vote, you know, it said that polls are snapshots of the public mood, and that's true, but so are elections. They're just snapshots. Now, power attaches to those snapshots. But they're snapshots. But power attaches. That's why they're so potent and dangerous. They measure people's fears and hopes. And that's really what they are. You know, I have a phrase I've come to, which is that parties die ugly in America. And we're watching the death of a political party. And that's a dangerous moment when something is dying. It fights for its life without regard to morality. If you are existentially against the wall, and this party's dying, it is dying. The last time a party died in this country was the Whig Party, and there was a civil war. I'm hoping we can avoid that. I think we will. But parties die ugly in America. But it's dying, as surely as anything. You know, you cannot, my mom said a great thing. She said, you know, you have to be radical in your youth or you're just going to be bitter in your old age because the world will not wait for you. You know, you can't unmarry people. You can't, I mean, it's over, you know, but for the dying. And so that needs to happen, and we have to allow room for that. Lincoln said a great thing when Grant asked what he should give to Robert E. Lee at the end. He said, I'm going to get the surrender tomorrow. What do you want? And Lincoln said, let him up easy. Let him up easy. He understood what a horribly humiliating thing it is to lose, especially in a country like America. I hope Biden wins, but we have to be ready to let him up easy. You know, we can endure loss better than they can. It's part of our psychology. It's not part of theirs. So we need to be ready to help them, not to gloat, not to just look for victory. We need to help them. You know, I'm a classicist. So in terms of being an artist, you know, that I was supposed to be Barack Obama, but I took a right turn into Shakespeare. So what are you going to do? You know, I found those magic jelly beans and I never came back. But, you know, and why that? And I think it's because that it offers the the tonic, somebody talked about, and I'm sorry, because so much has been said here, but about not being a task for one generation. Yeah, was it you that, who spoke of it? I actually have it in my notes somewhere here. I took notes on you guys. It was so enlightening, I can't even tell you. But talking about it being not a task for a single generation, you know, like a cathedral isn't. That's part of what a cathedral is. You put in a window, you'll never see it finished, but your great, 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 that's what a medieval cathedral is about belief in the future and not glorifying the moment. And yet I'm in an art that exists purely in the here and now. It's so ephemeral. And so for me, what the classics are is this thing where timelessness, the timelessness of that word that's overused, perhaps, Leyla, you're right, humanity, the timelessness of our humanity is joined or maybe disjoined from the frantic moment. And we are in a frantic moment. And so for me, my art sustains me by giving a sense of timelessness. You know, I had my 2 nieces that live in New York. I have 7 nieces. I look at them and I don't worry for the future. They're going to bury me, they're going to bury that guy. And they're going to have the world. And I don't have any doubts about that. And those things that seem so important to me and his existential angst about being an idiot will have faded to dust. And it will be their world. Now, hopefully we will have damaged it less if we do the right things every 4 years and all of that. That's all true. But we can do a lot of things regardless. And we do a lot of things. So I am hopeful. I am hopeful because the alternative is unsatisfactory. And I've talked too long and I will now shut up.
Thank you so much. That was so wonderful to hear for the first time I'm meeting you. Thank you so much, sir. I believe the person who has not spoken yet is, am I right, is Abhishek.
Yeah. Thank you, David, for organizing this. John's words gave me a hope and scared me at the same time, because he said it's the one party is dying, and if one party is dying, that means it's going to be a one party left, and a one party state where that goes is not a good place. I guess it's a very broad subject, voting and being the right of selecting the government and being an artist, putting them in the context. But I think we are talking about the present situation in the US. Lorraine said Trump is a symptom, right? What that pertains to is half of America voted for him. And for me, even if he loses the next election, this election, a lot of people are very passionate and supportive towards him. And a country is a group of people, basically, at its core. And for me, the bigger question is, how would you reconcile the other group? The suggestion I could make out here from John, I guess, is be easy on them, I guess. Yeah, that's a very good idea. But the way I see it, in long term, it doesn't matter again, because the way I see it is civilization goes like a pendulum. When it swings enough towards one side, it automatically has to come back to the other side, and then it goes enough on the other side, and then it comes back to the center. This has been happening throughout the history at all the places. It never stayed to one side of the scale constantly. So yes, but whatever happens, future is going to be hopeful, and nature has created a kill switch, everybody dies. So it doesn't matter how vicious a dictator one wants to be or becomes, there is a limit of time. So I'm hopeful. There's no doubt about it. I like to be thankful about what I have in the present and strive for more, make myself better, work on myself. Because that is where I have partial control, not fully control, because sometimes I cannot even control myself. Sometimes I want to work and I cannot put myself to work. So I don't think I have enough control on myself. So I cannot expect controlling or making people think the way I do. Now connecting it to being an artist. I think there are two ways to communicate to a human. You can communicate through logic or mind, or you can communicate through emotions or heart. We as actors, as artists, choose the latter path. We communicate through emotions. And I think that's the more efficient part if you really want to pursue someone, because we can explain the logic and tell people what to do or what's right, and they'll listen to us because they are polite or something, or they're scared of our whatever power at the time, in the moment. But they are gonna do what they're gonna do. But if we can persuade them by really making a change in their emotions, or that's where the real change is going to happen. And that's what we can do as artists. For example, I have read a lot of stuff about the history of the slavery of African people in America. In my school history books, in other books, in newspapers and other things. But no other thing made me realize or made me relate to their pain was the movie 12 Years a Slave. The movie was basically, even though it was inspired by a real life event, but it was an art piece. It was art. It was a call to our emotions. It was a attempt for us to relate to the situation, to those people at the time. So I think art has a deeper reach into the humans, and that's what we can do in terms of vote. We can create stuff, and we can create art that reflects our thinking, and reflects what we think is right and what should happen. And that's where, as artists, our power lies.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, so much for this. I mean, there was something to me so actually hopeful and strengthening to hear all of your voices right now. I so appreciate everything, and honestly, I feel like we really could continue for a couple of more hours at least, and I would love to. I think that maybe we could talk about doing this again. I mean, I had some other things to get a little more focused on the work and story and political, messages and nuance, and also the commercial business of art and how that can affect my friends and me, and as soon as people are making a lot of money, and they're on TV and they're doing this and you're like that, and everything can sometimes clear away. Oh no, I'm an activist. So how long are you going to be on that show? You know what I mean? I care, and everybody, so anyway, I was interested in perhaps revisiting this time, but for now, sometimes I do a little corny thing at the end. And I do think it would be good to end, because my son needs to go to sleep. And so could we all, it's a crazy thing to ask, but could you put your face a little bit closer to the camera? Put your face a little bit closer to the camera. And just for a minute, just look around at the faces. This is what we got tonight. And I am very grateful to all of you beautiful folks and everything that you shared. So wonderful. And if possible, I think you might get an invitation. I can talk to Edith because I do think it would be great to revisit. So thank you again. Thank you so, so much. Edith, did you want to say anything?
I just want to say thank you. It was really amazing to hear all of you. I feel hopeful, and I feel really grateful too, and I feel educated.
and more to come, hopefully, more to come. Thank you all again so much. Thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thank you. This was amazing.
Thank you very much.
It was
Thank
wonderful
you.
meeting all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Such
Have
a
a
beautiful
wonderful
ceremony.
election day, everyone.
Thank you.
Make a plan to vote if you haven't already.
Been there,
Yes.
done
Vote
that, darling.
early
Been
enough.
there, done that.
Have a great.
Plan.
Let's do this. Let's do this.